First of all, I would like to say give it unto God, to the pastor, which happens to be my father, saints and the friends. I'm indeed honored to be here this morning. I didn't think I would be able to make it. I had a good excuse. Just as I got ready to take off, I had a flat. So I had a good excuse, but I decided that the Lord ordained that we be here and that I'd better get in a hurry in order to do His will. I would like to say that I'm indeed honored this morning to be able to stand before you. I want you to understand a few things. Number one, I'm not my mother. I can't teach Sunday school like my mother. She's one of a kind. And I'm certainly not my father. He's one of a kind. I just have to do things the way that I do it. Is that all right? My purpose this morning is not to shout anyone or to make anyone happy, but if that happens, don't squinch the spirit. My purpose is not to show what I know this morning. My purpose is to try to foster some spiritual growth. I want you to feel that you've grown when you leave this place. First, I'll read my outline that I'm going to go by this morning. And if you have pencil and paper, I'll wait a few seconds and I'll let you get it out, because I have a lot of things that I want to point out. Okay, first of all, we are going to talk about the eyes of the soul. We're going to learn to see out of more than our natural eyes. Secondly, we're going to talk about the relationship of the age-old struggle between good and evil. Thirdly, we will talk about man's position in the universe. Then we have 3 points that we want to bring out before we get into the lesson. I will then I'll then give background on Daniel, the man Daniel. Then I will read over the lesson, make sure that we finish before the end. And then I'll give you my conclusion. I don't want you to get mixed up on the details. That's why we're not going to spend a lot of time just on the details. I want you to hear the message. Okay, the eyes of the soul. First of all, we must understand that God is high and that man is low. One scripture says that God sits high and He looks down low. But I want you to understand something else, that man sits low and man looks high. We're looking at the same things, both man and God, but we're looking at them from 2 different points of view. That is why God's ways are not like our ways. His ways are above ours. It is our hope this morning that we can take you to higher ground and that you can see from God's point of view. Remember that point. God sits high and looks low, and man sits low and looks high. From God's point of view, the view of time which He created, the view of time He gives to us in a book called the Bible. Remember, He sits high and looks low. But from down low, man calls his book history. They're seeing the same thing, but from 2 different points of view. I remember when I was in college, they was teaching us how to teach a blind man. How do you teach a blind man? So the question was asked, how do you teach a blind man the difference between red and blue? And we thought about it, and we thought about it, and we thought about it, and we couldn't come up with the answer. So the teacher told us, you have to get it down in his soul, not in his eyes. The thing you should do, you should get a red hot brick. You should put it in one hand. Tell him that represents red. You should get a cold piece of ice and then put it in the other hand. Tell him that represents blue. Now he can see down in his soul. He can see the relationship. So that leads to the point that I want to establish one relationship today. I want you to understand that there's a relationship between the forces of good headed by God and the forces of evil headed by the devil. First of all, God created a master plan even before he created the heavens and the earth. So he created something else besides just the heavens and the earth. He created a master plan before he did anything. In this master plan, he covered all areas. See, God doesn't have a blind side. You can't come up on his blind side because he has no blind side. So see, in his master plan, he planned to give man a free will, just like he gave the angels. You know, God is a good God. He doesn't make you do anything. So he gave him a free will. In this master plan, he knew what free will, what the possibilities were. He knew that ahead of time. So the devil thought he had, and when he got man to sin, he was going to throw a monkey wrench into the plans. But see, God had already planned for that. See, he had a lamb slain before the foundation of the earth. He was all in his plan. God's master plan is called time. That's his master plan. God himself is timeless. With him there is no past. With him there is no future. There is just now to God. But to man there's a past, a present, and a future. Evil is on the opposite side of God. Evil sometimes appears to be winning in this race of life, but don't fret yourself because of it, because God in his master plan, in the very beginning, he designed a winning plan. And see, I want to be on the Lord's side. Evil is getting ready to celebrate their greatest day of the year. In about 2 weeks. It's called Halloween. That's a celebration of evil, in case you didn't know it. For years, for thousands of years, maybe you don't know, but witches and wizards and warlocks have had conventions on October the 31st for thousands of years. They plan the evil that they're going to commit throughout the coming year. You see, it's different than it was. Evil is different than it was when I was a kid. It's transformed itself into an angel of light. Today, it doesn't seem so bad to be evil anymore. Evil is especially working with our children. I notice on Saturday morning cartoons now, they have a program called Dungeons and Dragons, and kids really enjoy that. See, nowadays people enjoy evil. A lot of people don't really know what's happening, but see, there are two forces at play in the universe: the forces of good and the forces of evil. So evil is making itself pleasurable nowadays. Kids love to watch it, but I don't allow that in my house, because I feel like Joshua when he said, "As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord." My father made that declaration a few years ago, and I want to make it again today myself. Also, see the devil, the thing about evil is that you can't play with it. If you play with evil, it will begin to not look so bad. And if you keep on playing with it, after a while you will see the evil as good and the good as evil. Proverbs tells us that every man does that which is right in his own eyes. Evil is getting ready to celebrate a holiday. I predict that the week before Halloween, You're going to see all kind of horrible things on television. They're going to saturate the airways with evil and demon spirits. You're going to see things like The Exorcist, Friday the 13th, and all sorts of evil things, because that day is a celebration of evil. Now, some of us don't realize what the evil one is trying to do to us. He's trying to steal our minds. But I'm not going to let him steal mine. How about you? Years ago, in the Bible, to show you that witches and warlocks are not of God, God commanded Saul to drive the witches and the warlocks out of Israel thousands of years ago. When Saul disobeyed God, Saul went to the witch of Endor to call up Samuel, to have Samuel to speak to him and tell him what thus saith the Lord. Now, there was a program that was on television a few years ago called Bewitched. A lot of people looked at it and enjoyed it. But if you remember Samantha, she was supposed to have been a good witch. There's no such thing as a good witch. Her mother was named Endora, if you'll notice. She was supposed to have been a descendant of the witch of Endor, the same one that Saul called. So evil is trying to take over this world, but I want you to know that I like to go on record, it's not going to win. It's not going to be so. Because, see, when God first created his plan in the very beginning, he created a winning plan. No one sits down and creates a losing plan. That doesn't make sense. So I want to stay on the Lord's side. Another thing we're going to talk about is man's position. Man was created by God, as you know, but man has no power at all. But God did give him one thing. He gave him a choice. Now, a lot of us think we're making lots of choices. We think we decided to come to church this morning, but not so. God ordained that we be here. He gave man only one choice. That one choice today still stands. Man has only one choice today. That choice is to decide whose side you're going to be on. You're either on God's side or you're on the devil's side. There are only two kinds of men in this world, from man's point of view. Those that see good and evil and try to live their lives according to it. Then there are men that try to live according to their desires and their want to. But man cannot do anything himself. He's influenced by good, and the devil tries to influence him also. There are 3 points I want to bring out before I get further into this lesson. Number one is that, for those that want to write this down, number one is that providence has determined that your fate is in your hands. Providence has determined that fate is in your hand. What's going to happen to you, you decide. In other words, in God's master plan, you decide at the beginning. You do. When you make this decision, it is already planned what's going to happen to you. If you decide to be on the Lord's side, he's going to put you on the right. And from then on, your end is going to be victory. Everything you're going to do is going to be right because you're on the Lord's side. But if you make the wrong decision and you decide to be on the side of the devil, you decide to be on the side of evil, he's going to put you on the left. Well, see, that's ordained too. Everything that you decide, everything you do is going to lead to damnation and to destruction. It is ordained. God has it all fixed. It was fixed from the beginning. Point number 2. There is a God that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. In other words, God lets you decide the beginning, but God himself decides the end. The third point I would like to bring out is that the race is not given to the swift, neither is the battle given to the strong, but to him that endureth to the end. At this point, I would like to tell you a little something about Daniel before we get further into the lesson. Daniel was a Hebrew. During the war, the great empire of Babylon captured his homeland, and they took Daniel down to the land of Babylon. Daniel was a brilliant young man. He was very smart and educated. He learned the ways of the Babylonians, and he began to rise in Babylonian society. He rose all the way to the position of governor. He was over other Babylonians. See, but he did not forget his God. He did not forget his God. So you see, you can rise if the Lord is on your side, no matter what your situation. While he was down in Babylon, the two previous lessons told us some things happened. God showed him a vision of time, his master plan. The king did not know what happened, but he was troubled by a dream. Now, Daniel was a young man. He was troubled by this dream, so he asked of his wise men and his magicians something that was impossible. He forgot his dream. All he knew is that he was troubled. So he asked the wise men and the magicians in his land, tell me, what did I dream? Then after you tell me what I dream, I want you to tell me what it means. Now that's impossible. From man's point of view, that's impossible. But from God's point of view, nothing is impossible. So finally, they brought Daniel to the king, and he said, I'll tell you what your dream is. Now see, that's faith right there. I'll tell you what now he didn't know. But he said, I'll tell you what it is. And after I get through telling you what it is, I'll tell you what it means. See, he knew he was on the Lord's side. And nothing is impossible to God. So while Daniel was down there, he interpreted the dream, and you know the story. The king gave him a high position in government, made him prince, made him governor of all the wise men. He was over all the wise men in Babylon, even though he was a Hebrew. Daniel had some friends that believed as he believed while he was down there. There was three of them, the three Hebrew boys they're known as. And you know the lesson. The lesson told us about how they went into the fiery furnace, and God delivered them. And as Daniel grew old, and I think it was a period of nearly 60 years, as Daniel grew old, they had to come to him again to interpret the handwriting on the wall. So when God is on your side, the devil is going to recognize who you are. They're going to know who you are, and when they get in trouble, they'll look you up. All right, now I will, so much for Daniel. We'll read the scriptures. The lesson is found in Daniel 12, 1 through 3. Daniel 5, verses 5 through 13. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, many to righteousness, some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteous as the stars forever and ever. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on the side of the bank of the river. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood, and one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swore by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly. Excuse me. And none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,335 days. And go thou thy way to the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and the hearing of his word. The point that I want to bring out today is that in the end, victory is final. In the end. I'm not concerned about now, but I'm looking for the end. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and read all this verse by verse, but I would like to point out some things. In Daniel 12, 1 through 3, God is telling us about the resurrection. He's saying that he's going to deliver his saints. So if you're on the Lord's side, deliverance will surely come. In verse 1, the first part of verse 1, the saints are in distress. God sends Michael down. Now Michael is God's warring angel. He has defeated the devil every time that he's fought him. I was in class last week and a little boy asked me, we were discussing the Bible, he asked me, why did Michael get uplifted instead of the devil? I mean, he's proven he's more powerful. He's always defeated him. Why didn't he get lifted up? So we discussed, and we had a real nice discussion in class. And so one little boy raised his hand. He said, I can see. I've noticed that people that have accomplished in life, people that have done great things in life, even if they have bodyguards, it's not because they're lifted up in pride. It's because they're just trying to protect themselves. So he said, I noticed that the most humble person is the strongest. The most humble is the strongest. So that's why Michael can always defeat the devil, because there's strength in humility. All right, so, but I think about us as a people, and I think you know what I'm talking about when I say us. We were in bondage. We were in distress, and we called out to the Lord. God heard our cry. But just like he told Israel when he brought them out of Egypt, he said, now, when you get to the promised land, he said, don't forget me. Please don't forget me. And I think about us. Some of us, we've forgotten God. God has always been the strength of our community. He always has. Whenever we've done anything in our community, we've done it through the church. But nowadays people are too busy on Sunday to go to the house of God. Somebody had to cut the yard this morning. And somebody washed his car. Now, the Lord said, don't forget me. I remember when I can barely remember, but when I lived in East Texas, I remember the house we used to live in and how the shingles were on the side, you know, had asphalt and shingles on the side instead of bricks. I remember when the bathroom was in the back and you had to go out and wade through the weeds and you were halfway scared to go out there. I remember that. You remember it too. It hasn't been that long. But God is trying to tell us now, don't forget me. Don't forget me. I'm the one that brought you up. I'm responsible for what you enjoyed today. Don't forget me. But when you're in distress, the second part of that first verse said that God will always send deliverance. Deliverance is going to come if you're just on the Lord's side. And the third verse points out that there's going to be a resurrection. Some are going to be resurrected to life. Some are going to be resurrected to damnation. All right, and then in Daniel 12, 5 and 7, God reveals the dream. I would like to urge everyone to hold on to your dreams. Dreams are very important. God dealt with Daniel through dreams. In this dream, he saw two men standing on either side of the river Hiddekel. Today, that river has changed name. It's called the Tigris River. But he saw these two men, and then he saw a man suspended above the waters. And he was telling him about the end times. See, God is not so concerned with now. Now, that's what man concerns himself with. Now, you're saved now, and that's good. But where are you going to be in the end? That's what we should all ask ourselves. Where are we going to be in the end? Because that's when God is giving out his rewards in the end. So Daniel wanted to know more about these mysteries. God told Daniel in verse 8 through 10 that he was going to seal up the book. Now that's the same thing he told John when he let John see a vision in Revelation. I'm going to seal up the book. I don't want you to see everything. This is enough right here. I think that's enough to carry you through. So God gave us enough to carry us through. He sealed up the book, and in verses 11 and 12, now I'm going to have to read them. And from the time that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away, and the abomination that make it desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. In other words, God has his own schedule. So see, we need to be on the Lord's time and not our own. All right, and in verse 13, to bring out the fact now that Jesus showed us how to run this race. You know, this race is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's a long distance race. But Jesus, he showed us how to live this life. And not only did he show us how to live this life, he also showed us how to meet the end. He showed us how to die, in other words. Number one in this life, and you must do these things until the end. Number one in this life, Jesus was humble. He had humility. Even though he was the Son of God, he allowed other people to have authority over him. Now he was the Son of God, but yet he was humble and he obeyed the laws of the land. That is what God wants us to do. He wants us to have humility. Also in this life, God wants us to have a forgiving heart. I don't hear a lot of sermons on that. But God wants us to have a forgiving heart. He showed us when he was dying on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. If they understood, see, they wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do it if they understood. And I want to bring this in too. You know, the devil is tricky. He tries to steal your mind. See, no man does evil just for the sake of evil, that doesn't make sense. That's against human nature. But every man does that which seems right in his own eyesight. That's what Proverbs tell us. So the devil tries to make the wrong appear right. So see, what I want you to understand today is that there is an apparent good. There's a good that appears to be right, and then there is that which is real. I want you to understand the difference. Somebody is saying that I didn't intend to leave the Lord. I didn't intend to backslide, but the devil tricked me. Well, I'm here to tell you how he goes about trickery. He tries to make evil seem good, and he tries to make good seem evil. See, that's apparent. Don't go according to your own eyesight, but follow the leading of the Lord. That's what's real. If you don't believe that there are things that exist that you don't see, you can take a drop of water, put it under a microscope and look at it. And you will see that there are things swimming around that you don't see with your natural eye. So see, there are things that exist that we can't see with our natural eye. See, we're such a small form of life, and God is so great. You know, I think about the ants on the floor. I look at the ants sometimes. You know, they don't know I'm standing there looking at them. That's the way we are. Sometimes we feel that we're walking along. We're all in trouble, and God has turned his back on us. But God is standing right there beside you. He's looking at you right now. So you need to understand that God will never leave us alone. Also, besides having a forgiving heart, Jesus, when he was on the cross, he established hope. We need to live in that blessed hope that we're going to keep on living after we die. The thief on the cross said, when you come into your kingdom, please remember me. Jesus stopped dying just for a moment there, and he said, this day you shall be with me in paradise. In other words, he was establishing hope beyond death. So see, we're going to keep on living after we die. That's the point I'm trying to get across. When the saints die, we're not dead. We're just asleep. We're just asleep. Also, on the cross, Jesus established that Christians should have trust in God. He began to cry out. His humanity began to cry out and ask the Father, why? Father, why? What did I do? What did I do? Why have thou forsaken me? I didn't do anything. See, that was his humanity crying out. But see, his spirit was stronger than his humanity was. And see, that's what God wants for us today. He wants our spirits stronger than our humanity. And even though he was crying in pain, even though his flesh was crying out and he felt bad and lonely, he felt put down, he still trusted in God. He just hung on for a little while longer. Also, he met the end, and he met it right. He did all these things. He was humble. He was forgiven. He established hope beyond death. And then when he got through, he said, it's finished. And that's what we want to do, those of us that are on the Lord's side in the very beginning. When I started, and see, that's why I still serve the Lord, and I've served him all of my days, because I've always understood that in the end, we're going to win. See, somebody was inspired by God and wrote a song that said, you don't have to wait till the battle is over. You can go ahead and shout now. See, because in the end, we're going to win. See, it doesn't matter that it seems, and the Sunday school lesson told us last week, for a time it's going to seem that the devil is winning. It's going to look like he's prospering. But see, that's just an illusion. See, that's not real. See, that's a parrot. It's not real. See, we're going to win in the end. And see, if you're on the Lord's side, you can't lose, because the Lord is a winner. You know, sometimes I wonder I wonder, why does the devil play? I wonder what was he playing for? He always loses. Every single time he loses. He not only loses to God, he loses to Michael. He's a loser. You know, I also wonder, why do people serve the devil? What are they on his side for? What did he do for you? What did he do for you? I'm going to stop right now and tell you everything he did for me right now. You see, I'm through. You see, the devil's never done nothing for me. I know that's bad English now, but that gets my point over. He hasn't done anything for me. If those of you want to be correct. But I tell you something else. He never did nothing for you either. So what you serving him for? What you serving him for? I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me. I want to be on the Lord's side because I want to be on the winning side. I see myself as a winner. See, I'm a winner. I'm not going to lose. I'm not a good loser. I'm not good at it. I don't practice losing. All right. Now the conclusion of the lesson this morning. The conclusion is that we shouldn't be afraid of anything that the devil does. We shouldn't be concerned about what's going on in the world. See, we're in the world, but we're not of it. I just happen to be here. I'm just passing through. That's all. Just passing through. So we shouldn't be concerned. We shouldn't get caught all up in what's going on. Number two, we shouldn't be afraid of the devil. We shouldn't be afraid of the devil, see, because he may kill me. See, this is what you got to understand. The devil may kill me, and he may bury me deep. But see, can't no grave hold my body down. That's what you got to understand. See, the devil can crucify me on the cross and lay me in the grave. But see, God can roll the stone away. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. I'm not afraid of anything that the devil does. He can throw the Red Sea in front of me. He can put me in the fiery furnace, put me in the lion's den. But I'm not afraid of anything that he can do. Because, see, I'm on the Lord's side. And the Lord told me in the beginning that I'm going to win. I'm just waiting. If I die before he comes, I won't be dead. I'll just be asleep. See, I'll just be waiting on my appointment because, see, I'm practicing. Every time I come to church now, I'm learning how to rule. See, because the Sunday school lesson told us last Sunday that the saints going to possess the world. So, see, I'm practicing now. I'm getting ready. See, I'm getting ready now. We don't have to worry. That's what the lesson is trying to tell us, that in the end there's going to be victory. I don't care what you face. If you determine in your heart if it's right, and if it's right, you keep pressing on. You keep on pressing on, and in the end, you're gonna win. And no matter how the trials of life come against you, and no matter how they press you down, if you're on the Lord's side, you're going to win. If they press you down and you just can't stand it, God gave us a privilege. He said, if my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray, they would hear from heaven, and I would heal the land. That's what he told us. Sometimes as men, we get in a hurry, but I'm going to slow down and wait on the Lord. Because the Lord said, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall walk and not be weary, and they shall run and not faint. I'm going to run on. I'm going to run on because I'm trying to see what the end is going to be. I know in the end there's victory. There's victory. There's victory.